Hey, Scott Fresener here with T-Biz TV, T-Biz Network, and I'm at Anton Sportswear in beautiful Scottsdale, Tempe, Arizona with my good friend, Richard Greaves. Richard, you're looking like a mountain man, though. I noticed when you came over.
If I don't see people over the Christmas holiday, I was shoveling snow 4 days ago, so as soon as I got to beautiful Long Beach, I wish I'd cut my hair off, but
Now, you're in Detroit.
I live in Detroit now, yeah.
And then do you shave this every now and then?
Once a month. First of the month means I just go out with the clippers in the driveway. I do it with my eyes closed while I'm listening to a netcast.
See, I let mine grow a little bit every now and then, and it's so gray that I'm thinking I look like the old guy. You have a lot of color still on you.
Gray.
No, but you have a nice kind of a
It's
duotone.
gray. It's white. I don't look in the mirror that much, and I'm sort of going, oh my gosh, what happened? I've got that screen printer's part.
No, it's a good look. We're actually in a physical screen print shop, so we have noise going on behind us. We're at Anton Sports, and we thought it'd be kind of fun just to do our little interview in a real shop, people working around us. They were told they can't reclaim screens for a while we're here, so they're probably going, who are those guys over there? Anyway, we are going to talk about the ISS show. Richard attended the ISS show in Long Beach last weekend. Well, today's Monday. It was just yesterday. It was the 16th, 17th, and 18th. I had a consulting gig come up, and it paid much better money than me going to ISS, so I took the money and ran, and I was going to meet Richard over there and have dinner at our, what do we have, King's Fish House?
King's Fish House. I was there the other night.
That really irritates me now because I see all kinds of guys posting. I was at King's, I was at 555,
I don't know how many times you and I have gone to the King's Fish House.
Oh, man,
back in the Union days.
I think I've lost track. Well, for a while there, we didn't pay because Union Inc. was paying, and then
Thank you.
And then I ended up paying. So we're going to talk about the ISS show, kind of the good news, bad news, the rumors, things you missed, things you wish you would have seen, industry scuttlebutt and stuff like that. And we're going to jump right into it. Now, for those of you that don't know, the ISS show in Long Beach is probably, I think, the biggest. Wouldn't you say the biggest T-shirt show in the world?
Oh, there's absolutely no question about it.
I mean, there's a lot of ISS shows. You've got Atlantic City, you've got Orlando, and other things. And there's lots of other shows, NBM and stuff like that. But when people want to go to the show, this show has grown to be the show. Wouldn't you agree?
If you're in textiles and you can only go to one show, save up your money and come to Long Beach.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy from Florida last week. I'm on the phone. He says, "Yeah, I'm getting ready to pack my bags." I'm like, "Where are you going?" Going to ISS. The guy's from Florida, going to fly across the country, and so this is the biggest show in the world. Now, SGIA and other shows that have a broader scope of wide format and textiles, or maybe bigger shows, bigger footprint, more exhibitors, but ISS is the show. And so we go to ISS to try and see the who's who, see what's going on, see what's new. And I guess the show, I haven't seen any numbers, but I'm guessing it was probably the biggest show they've ever had.
Well, they had so many booths that they literally moved the Impressions Award show, and the Impressions booth was out in the lobby. There were also two other, stands that looked like it had embroidery things in it. So they sold booth space in the hall by moving the show out into the lobby, or the awards out into the lobby.
Do you recall when it was in the aquarium, the old Long Beach Convention Center, and they had all the underground behind the bleachers booths? In Tampa years ago, Tampa would sell booths out into the lobby and stuff. So I think that's a good sign, though, the fact that they sold out and they had booths out in the aisle, on the lobby.
I sat next to Aaron when we were watching the two regular guys do their podcast in the Impressions booth. Aaron is a salesperson for Impressions, and she literally had people stopping by booking their booths for next year.
This is good. We're going to come back.
Yeah.
Now, I'm guessing, because we talked before this thing, I'm guessing that it was a great show, busy show, aisles packed.
Absolutely, the aisles were crowded. On the first day when I got there, it was only about 10 o'clock, but I had a hard time walking around. Smoke coming out of ovens and things like that. It just seemed, in fact, the whole hall seemed kind of dim. It was like they never turned the lights up, so it felt like setup. So
I think that's Long Beach. I think that hall is a little odd, and it's odd, and it's got that jang and the kind of a little off center on the thing, and it's got those pillars going through it.
Mm-hmm. They literally had two smoke alarms go off. So we get I happen to be standing in one corner, and the alarms are all going off, and the fire guys show up because they want to know what this. So I was very pleased. You could not walk easily through the aisles no matter what. There are always people in your way.
Did I ever tell you my fire who's the fire guy? What we just call him? Fire inspector story.
Fire inspector, no.
Our booth at US Screen used to be packed, and I'd be doing my demo of fast films then. And the fire inspector comes by our booth and says, "You've got too many people in your booth. You've got to shut down your demo." I'm going, Are you kidding me? That's why I'm here. Well, the aisles are too busy. I said, that is not my problem. And it just was the funniest thing. Here's a guy saying you have to shut down your booth because you're packing the aisles, So anyway, but I wish I would have been there. I really, I like to go to the ISS show in Long Beach every year, and I wish I would have been there. So what do you think was the highlight? I mean, what blew you away?
Well, this is the fourth report that we've done at Atlantic City and Nashville and the SGIA show. So there really wasn't that much new. Of course, I'm going to cover a lot of things, and everything that I've got on my little list of notes here, they're going to be new. But I don't know that there was anything that was so spectacular like the Firefly that I saw at SGIA that still blows me away, and it's the number one thing that I'm telling everybody about.
And they were showing it, I'm sure here.
Oh,
That's
yes,
from Brown Manufacturing.
Same thing. And I'd seen it once before. And
you think they have traction now because they first showed it? What was it, Nashville or SGIA?
No, they first showed it at
SGIA. So you think now it has some legs?
Well, these are all textile people. So you imagine at SGIA, where textile was such a small part of the overall show, these are people that are actually interested in this sort of thing. And I know that I personally must have told, through the report, but also everybody I know that prints sporting goods and polyester. So that's easily 20 people I said, you must go and at least understand how it's going. But I don't think they have that many units out in the field yet. It's still new.
How much is it? It's pricey, isn't it?
Well, Harpolds are sort of sidestepping the actual numbers. You can get actual numbers for it, but
now you were talking to a guy before we came. You had a phone call before we came in my office, and I know you were talking about polyesters and things, and I think he had looked at the Firefly.
Yes, and he was blown away. He knows it, but it's expensive, and Brown has never been known as a trend leader. They've been known as a good, stable, Midwestern, bulletproof equipment.
Mean potatoes, really, don't you think?
And I don't mean that with any disrespect, but
I agree.
The equipment is always a little bit heavier, and they're not a flashy, sexy company. They're a good, stable company. I completely trust them, but they're brown, and I remember old jokes in the past that they're brown on purpose. It's a nice, mellow color, and it's they're
okay,
not green.
moving on.
Right, so I love them. The Harpolds have always been very good to me, and I like their equipment. But it's always, for instance, it's been heavy.
Yeah.
But they've had interesting equipment that was always a little unique and inventive.
I think they were the first guys to bring out a curved cap thing. I'm thinking about over the years with the dad. Was it Wes?
It was Wes Harpold.
Right. Yeah. All right. So you brought back a shirt sample though that you showed me that I had seen the prints before, and you had said these guys were making a splash there, which I think their name is kind of wrong.
Well,
maybe that's me.
Their name is what it is. Virus was there in a gigantic. Well, I don't know, gigantic for an ink company. This is the shirt that they're doing.
And this is water-based print.
Water-based. So there's 100-line halftones in this also.
And it's really, if you could feel the print, it's a really a soft print. Really, it's a little hand, but not much at all. Very soft print.
We actually saw this being printed. And so it isn't a matter of, who cheated for this. If you're touching this now, you cannot feel the white ink. I mean,
that's good coverage. It's really good.
It's perfect. No one would complain about this. And they're printing them at the show, so there was no magic. You could see they only had 6 colors in the printing press, and I was just very impressed. Plus, the Italians have style, and the booth had artwork, some of the best artwork I've ever seen. I would want every single print that I saw there. So they've invested their money in sexy, beautiful art, sexy, beautiful people. The Italians are very attractive and very well dressed, and they're knowledgeable about their product, and they're looking for distributors, I heard.
Yeah, they're really good. They were across from me at FESPA London 2 years ago. I mean, and I was like, who are these guys? Virus. Never even heard of them before. Now, you had mentioned, and we won't name names, that another company that does sell water-based ink in this country was kind of thinking, next year we're going to have a bigger spread, but I think Virus is going to eat some guys' lunch if they aren't careful.
I literally heard several people, vendors or not, that are saying, oh, look at Virus, because they made the biggest splash. That's a good way to say it. They made a gigantic splash. The ripples we're going to see for a long time.
Their new tagline, we make a splash, just don't get sick, or what, I don't know.
Now,
You think that word translates? Maybe it's an Italian word.
I have no,
Maybe-
I have no,
I'm just
you know,
curious.
virus. If they didn't check to see what virus means in the English language, they should have done their homework. But it's, you know, they're an edgy kind of a group.
Yeah.
I think the important thing was the ultra fine halftones that printed quite easily, and the magic is somehow in the fact that they've got water-based inks and discharge inks that will not dry in the screen for 4 hours. So much of the danger of running an automatic press and be worried about when you stop, that if in 2 or 3 minutes you're getting dry in the screen, so you got to clean the screens. That's always been a big problem.
That's a big plus. That's a big plus.
And that would be with domestic, regular, water-based technologies that were based on roller printing, where those machines never stop. Now, I know that Terry Kaiserman had developed inks in the early 80s that didn't dry on the screen either.
Now, Terry was before Union. Terry's an ink
Terry
chemist
Kaiserman,
and been around a long time, ink chemist, but he worked for Union for a number of years.
Yes, but he had a company called Custom Color, and that's how
That's where I first met him. He had long hair and a lot of hair. And,
long hair. We were all skinnier
Well,
then.
hair then.
I weighed 130 pounds.
Holy crap.
But he taught me how to make water base, and it wasn't that complicated to get it to, you know, it is complicated, but none of the usual manufacturers have had these kind of drying times. So it's definitely something to look into.
Yeah.
There are now SPR, Screen Print Resource in Southern California. They're the only distributors I think that have it now. That you can't take my word for it, but distributors, if you're interested, this is something to get into. That's a business problem. I can't advise on,
It's
but,
definitely looking at. All right, so you walked around. You saw a new automatic show, a new automatic.
Well, we'd all been hearing about the lead up for Workhorse, and several other manufacturers are coming out with new presses that they talked about, or maybe they had them at SGIA. But this was the big show where you're going to see more ovals. I talked about ovals in the past shows. I don't remember which one of the shows we talked about ovals as a space saver, but I paid special attention to the M&R Striker, which I actually saw in person. I paid more attention to it, and there's no chains. The old precision oval, which is of course the oval of record, it had a chain that ran the platens around it, and of course that chain stretched. Anybody that ever ran a motorcycle or a chainsaw knows that you've got to constantly adjust the chain as it stretches out. And so registration was a problem on the rear end.
You had ovals.
I never had an oval.
Oh, you had multi-printers
I'm in
from Advance.
Yes, I printed on ovals, but I like the control you got from individual heads. Now, of course, the new ovals have all got individual heads, power supplies, great lockup, and the speed at which the platens move, because they only have to move, let's say, 28 inches. Zip, they just go zip straight across. It doesn't have to turn, and you just don't have the registration problems that you get from the long arm that, you lock the arm back here, it still moves out where you need to keep the print in line. So all this resurgence, MHM, M&R, definitely had new ovals that people should consider. Now, the guy that I talked about in the last show, SGIA show, who I'm going to tell, or I did tell, to maybe go to ovals because he didn't have enough space, he's buying a new building. So it's too late. It's too late for that experiment. He bought another. He's got 4 times the space now. So
yeah. But you saw the Workhorse press.
Yes, the Workhorse has a new press based on the Freedom machine. It's called the Freedom Express, and it's kind of a smaller, or it uses a lot of technology that I saw in the Sabre press in Nashville. It's not all electric. It's an air machine like so many that we've seen. I'm not familiar with the Freedom press itself, but
it's $25,000. What'd you say the price point was?
$5,000 for a 4.6. It's
4.6.
It's 11 feet across. Maybe it's 9 feet across. Now I'm forgetting. No, it's 11 feet across. It's small, fits through a 30-inch door. It runs silently, and it's got the control system that was introduced on the Sabre. So it's a smaller tablet. It's a 7-inch tablet. I think they're Dell Venue tablets, but it's got beautiful software. It's complex. You can do so many things. If you go to the Workhorse website, they've got demonstrations on YouTube. I'll put a link in the show notes. as to where you can go and look for that sort of thing. But definitely go explore YouTube on the workhouse and look up close. The controls are just amazing. Their portal system, where you can control the manufacturing system and find out exactly what the machine is doing, for $25,000. Of course, you have to buy a chiller and an air compressor. You have to have it shipped. You have to have a technician to come in. So it's going to be $30,000.
Yeah.
You know, the buyer, everything is if you want flashes, and you have to have a flash. It can handle either a flat. Well, I think this is a unique thing that Paul Schmidt told me about. You can put a flash on the takeoff platen and use what they call the orbit mode, which of course seems like the revolver mode from M&R, so I think they call it. They didn't actually run that for me, but that's what it does. Now that means that you print the first color on all 8 platens, and then when it spins around, you flash it on the takeoff spot next to the loader, and then it goes around and prints. So it takes 2 revolutions, but you do it with only one person. You get a nice cool down, you put in a flash, and you don't have to get in a shuttle style flash that goes underneath the head. You can print with the platen up.
Right. Yeah. Now, was there a striker there?
Oh, there was definitely a striker there.
And there was the MHM.
MHM.
What's it called? It's here.
There, I'm gonna have to bail. I don't remember.
I know it had buzz. I talked to some guys I saw them online. They were talking they're going to go see the MHM and stuff. Who do you think had the most crowds? I mean, I know M&R probably was packed because they're M&R, but on the automatics, was there any buzz on any one?
You know, you take a booth like M&R and it's as big as Rhode Island.
As big as a shop here, probably.
Yes, and it's hard to cut through. There were certainly more ink companies than there were at SGIA. Every ink company was there. Princess Polly One had literally nothing. It was strictly a lounge, but they were always busy with friends of Polly One there.
Yeah. So all the autos got a lot of play, though. You think people were there looking to buy autos?
It's equipment. Things were selling, and it was a busy show. I'm not good at asking manufacturers. So how many have you sold? What are your sales numbers like?
Well, you never know. I remember, I don't know, someone told me years ago they sold like 50 DTG machines, when I was selling my machine. You don't sell 50 machines at a trade show. It doesn't happen. So I thought that was BS. So what else was new? Give me a little gem nugget.
So, an old favorite of mine, Sati. When I saw their replacement exposure units with LED technology in it, I didn't have my UV meter at SGIA, and I wanted to measure them. So I brought it this time. And I went and visited quite a few of the vendors with LED and asked them to, can I measure the UV output? And a couple of them, I'm not going to say a lot, there's not that many of them. A few of them said, oh, no, I would rather you wouldn't do that. So they didn't want me to measure.
Call me, we'll do it later. Huh?
Well, no, I mean, I'm right there, I got the meter, and they didn't want to be on the record. There were several people that, when I said, can I record this? Because I don't want to hold up my notebook and make the notes when I can just record their voices. Can I record this? And they go, oh, no. So, okay.
Makes you nervous when
I'm glad
somebody's
I'm not
recording.
a real reporter.
So what are you checking with the UV? Give them a little background on what nanometers are and kind of what you're checking for.
Well, nanometers are the measurement of the wavelengths, the length of the wave, and so it's a measurement term. So many of the strips, a lot of companies have got strips that's starting at 365 nanometers, which really is not, it's an old wives' tale kind of area that I'm sure that there were lamps that output at 365. And yes, you will get some exposure, but I think what most people don't understand is that there are parts of all emulsions and sensitizers and the molecules that absorb ultraviolet energy before it gets to the sensitizer. Thus, so much of UV energy at certain wavelengths doesn't even get through the emulsion 1 micron. So it's like wearing a bulletproof vest. You can pound on me all day long, but unless you get the exact right area, and that area for so many years where the sensitivity is, where there's very little blockage, absorbance or blockage that doesn't get to the sensitizer. So if you're playing football and you want to kill the quarterback, which that seemed to be what they were doing on the TV screens at the show. I guess Green Bay got hammered. That's what anybody was paying attention to.
Great ending to a game. I can tell you that.
So
anyway.
I'm from Wisconsin, so I won't go along. But the key is to be able to get with the least amount of interference or resistance so the energy gets to the sensitizer and the UV energy can move all the way through to the back of the stencil. Well, SBQs do behave differently and than the old diazos, but 405 is the established perfect.
You called it the tenderloin a minute ago.
That's the tenderloin. It's the sweet spot. A little higher is not so good. A little lower is not so good because of problems with science. Now, I went over this in detail because I didn't understand it as well as I knew I didn't understand it as well. And so at SATI, I talked to Ross Balfour, a guy that has been a hero of mine since I visited him at Autotype in England 30 or 35 years ago. And this is what turns out to be a Ross Balfour conversation with lots of graphs. And I probably talked to Ross for 30 minutes, and I loved every second of it. And so he's the one that really refreshed my understanding of what UV ranges work best, what don't. And in fact, the best thing that I got out of Ross Balfour is the old age discussion of post-exposure. And take it from me, I'm taking it directly from Ross Balfour. He's still saying that you don't want to underexpose and post-expose, because my big problem is that I always found that people underexposed, and then they would dissolve the stencil. And of course, the stencil that didn't get hardened rinsed down the drain. Ross is saying that with SBQs, you still completely expose it. You take it to a solid step 7 on a Stouffer scale, which is a scale that only costs you $10. If you don't have one, I say that you're just making so many mistakes. You're not really learning from what you're doing. But you expose for a solid step 7, and then you post-expose an SBQ-based photopolymer stencil for perhaps 4 times as long.
He's a proponent of post-exposure.
Right, on a completely exposed stencil.
Right.
Because what happens is that when you've washed it out, the water's absorbed by the stencil, even though they're water resistant. They're absorbed, they swell up, and the swelling up, there's a hysteresis of the molecules. When they dry back down again, there are more SBQ molecules that can now cross-link in a 3-dimensional manner. And so,
there you go.
Okay.
Who knew?
I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I'm so loving it because I can't tell you for how long I've told you post-exposure is pretty much a waste of time, because I'm saying that post-exposure is a waste of time if you under-cured your stencil and you think that's going to fix it. No, you completely cure the stencil. It's the absorbent of water, the drying of the water, it reshuffles a molecule, and you've got new, fresh SBQ reactions. But he's also said 2 or 3 or 4 times the exposure. So if you're shooting for 3 minutes, you've got to reshoot with your exposure lamp, or it's time to take it outside. So those people that are in Southern California, Florida, it's okay. But
or here, when we walked in, what we see?
Well, it's 77 degrees
outside.
here.
Screens outside.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. What else you got?
Thank you, Ross. Ross is the man.
You got a free dinner?
No.
Oh, you had to pay for this dinner.
Oh, are you talking about the shirt part?
Not from Saudi, but
Ross.
No, from the shirt
I love
board.
Ross without any freebies. Although, the great thing about Sati, I love that 21-step grayscale, and I buy them in bulk. They cost me like $7.10 each, and it's been something I've given to consulting clients because I want them to have them. I think that every manufacturer of ultraviolet equipment should give out a 21-step grayscale when they sell you an exposure unit.
I don't think they would do that.
Oh,
But
when they buy them in bulk, it costs $7.
They should, but
I don't know. I don't know if they're answering questions like I had to at Lawson and Yolano about how am I.
Because they're equipment guys, I think, and you were.
They cannot take my advice.
Yeah.
That's fine. But Sati has been known. If you want to be a Sati customer, one of the perks that they have is they will give you a Stouffer 21-step grayscale with their name on it. They have them made custom for them.
It costs them $7 or whatever.
Might probably get it a little bit cheaper, but that's a $7 thing.
That's so funny.
So I told people that I know that if you go and say that you went to the Richard Greaves seminar, that you should go down and say, Greaves told that I could get a free one at Saudi. They're going to want to scan your name. Now they got their name so they can, but won't you trade your name like you do to YouTube and Facebook for a $10 value? that you should put on every screen you expose for the rest of your life.
I think a lot of that's a lost art, though. Don't you I mean, like we talked earlier about salesmen being a lost art. I think that some of these things that you and I have been preaching all these years that's in the encyclopedia, people don't do. I think because it just kind of fell to the wayside. Don't you think? I mean, how many shops do you think you would go into and find that they're doing all this?
That's how we've kept alive for so long,
I guess
isn't it?
so. That's why they call you in as a consultant. All right, moving along. You hang out with Pierre.
Yes.
How do you say his last name?
Pierre Yamnishi.
Yamnishi.
You know,
Now,
it wasn't until I saw him say his name at your Long Beach video that I actually heard what his name is. So he's become a very good friend of mine.
Now hold on. Richard tells me that Pierre and him, they hung out, but they rented a convertible.
Well, you know, we had to get a
Southern
car.
California, right?
And Pierre did this. It is all Pierre's because I'm sitting over in the thing because I'm gimping along guarding the luggage, and Pierre rented the car. But he had said, you know, should we get a convertible? And I said, no, I'm not, you know, I don't want to pay the cash for this. So I'm getting it. So Pierre went up, and I saw him waving his arms and whatever, and he told me later on that you know, the guy tried to sell him a convertible. Or, you know, rent him a convertible from the Dollar Rent-A-Car, our new best friends.
They had a deal on him.
So he said, and originally the number was 60. And Pierre just immediately said, you mean $16? And he goes, no, $60 for a convertible every day. Right. And Pierre said, no. Well, do you have a Costco card?
You get a discount with a Costco card? I thought
And
it was
Pierre said,
triple A or ARP or whatever.
No, so he said he had a different kind of a warehouse card
that's so funny.
and
We
BJ's.
take it.
And I says, well, that's $25 a day. And says, no, I'm not paying it. And I guess they went back and forth and said, okay, well, what if I give you the Costco discount, which is $16? And Pierre went, yeah, okay. So we came out to the car and went, we've got a convertible. So, we walked over to the Mustang convertible, and there were some people from France that wanted the car that we wanted. Because there were 6 beautiful Mustangs out there.
Who are these wild and crazy
So
guys?
we immediately put the top down and immediately went to In-N-Out Burger, which is 2 miles away.
Oh my God! I need a picture of that.
So
Greaves and Pierre
So
and In-N-Out Burger in the convertible.
We're racing down the 405, eating our doubles, spilling the sauce on my shirt.
That's so
and
funny.
okay, we were in California, baby.
So you guys were hanging out though, and
Right,
Pierre
we
is
shared a room.
you see he's an owner of the shirt board. There's the 3 owners.
He's a partner. Well, you know, he's a partner.
Yeah.
He and Dotone Dan and
Andy.
Andy Maines, Frog, he's called on a lot of the bulletin boards.
The shirtboard.com.
Theshirtboard.com. But Pierre and I are giving a seminar. We gave a seminar on variables. It's the consultant or the science kind of a guy, and the guy that's got 35 years of experience, and the guy that's been 6 years in the business who's a serial entrepreneur. And it's a tie into his serial entrepreneur seminars that he's been doing for Impressions also. So, you know, naturally we had 15 points that we had to make and only 90 minutes. And with Pierre and I both talking at the same time.
Which gets you about number 9. Where'd you end up?
So, well, you know, I had the little phone in front of me that's saying 30 minutes, 60 minutes to go. And when we got down to 22 minutes, we had only done about 6 or 7 of the 15 things we were supposed to talk about. So at the end of
when
90,
people go to the end of the office and say, well, now they only covered 10 points and it'll both be 15, and I want a refund on the 5 points.
I don't know, but I'm always ashamed now. The Impressions people have always been upset with me because I've always gone over. I talk too much. I give too much. And in many ways, that's not good because people, if it's all new stuff, they can't absorb all that info in 90 minutes. But we started with about 45 to 50 people.
Well, now you had the Sunday, you told me the Sunday slot, which is the
baby.
death slot at a trade show to be a speaker. The seminar next you had, 6 people?
Yeah.
You had 50.
We had 50.
Which tells you the topic was a great topic.
It was a great topic, and sure, maybe we lost about 20 people when we told, you know, the 90 minutes is over. If you need to leave, we won't be offended. But Pierre and I carried on for another 30 minutes, and then Pierre had to go to his daily shirt board.
You ran over then.
Oh, yeah.
But there was nobody behind you then.
Well, we didn't we
Sunday.
couldn't have done that if we didn't have anybody behind me. And so what are they going to do, fire me? So I kept on going. But Pierre had to leave to go to his shirt board meetup at M&R's booth, which he had every day at 12:15 or 12:30. Look for that at other IS.
Kind of a round table or just hang out?
Just people that come to his shirt board forum.
Right.
He just has a meetup, and if we're there, so it's people that we don't know. We get to hang out and share information. It's a forum-sponsored thing.
And then they do a dinner at night.
Yeah, they do dinner at night, and that I'll talk about that in just a moment. But the seminar was, I mean, I had people stopping me in the last 3 hours of the show after that. That the guy's tapping me on the shoulder, and there was one guy, he must have weighed 250 pounds. He looked like a big football player, taller than me, and he says, I was in your seminar. And, yeah, okay. And then he says, oh man, we've got to have your help on this, and can you go over to the Newman booth with us or something like that? And so,
the Newman booth. Now, who's that, right?
So when I do seminars like that and people get something, I'm not making any money on that. I want them to learn the stuff. And the seminars just don't pay like they used to. I used to get the full boat trip and all that, and now it's me and Pierre splitting the meager fee.
Yeah.
I got to pay my own hotel.
Yeah, I know. It's different.
Well, that's the thing about renting a Mustang. Got the Mustang convertible for under $100 with taxes and gas for under $100, and I know we paid more in parking for that car.
Probably so.
We should have maybe used taxi. So
yeah.
I don't know. I just believe me, we enjoyed the car. So the Shirt Ford has a forum dinner at all ISS shows. So those of you that don't belong to the Shirt Forum, it is sponsored by M&R.
Is it private though? I mean, how do you go to it?
You have to if you're.
They don't pay. They don't pay.
People that belong to the Shirtboard Forum, and there's not a membership. If you know about it, you only know about it because somebody from the Shirtboard Forum told you about it. Right. It's a bulletin board, the Shirtboard. Rich Hoffman at M&R is the person that usually sponsors quite a few of them. Rich actually came to the Atlantic City one. I think I mentioned that in the Atlantic City show report. So, 30, 35 people. We all met at the King's Fish House. And on purpose, I sat across from Mark Coudray because I haven't had a good talk with Mark for a long time. Deborah Sexton was at our table. Had another very interesting separator with a southern accent. I didn't meet him, but, another separator guy. I had Pierre next to me. I forget who sat next to me on this side. But we just had light. But I went to every single table to go say hello and meet everybody. And I got a lot of interesting, talking to Mark Coudray. One of the things that he's doing is that he's going to do SEPs on a 24-hour turnaround basis. So I know that's maybe not so
well,
good for
he's
you.
He's going to do the 6-minute abs, and then I'll do the 5-minute. I just watched something about Mary the other day. The 5-minute abs, and then you'll be doing the 4-minute ab. We'll be doing the 18-hour turnaround. I'm going to do 18-hour turnaround.
Well, you told me a long time ago, and I've told people this, and people come up to me and say, no, I've got Scott Fresener doing my SEPs, and Mark said he's going to call it Rocket SEPs, and he's going to promise a 24-hour turnaround. Yours is what, 72 hours?
Yeah, but I'm changing. I'm going to go to 24 hours.
No weekends?
Well, I work great. The problem, I think, has been we've all been not hurt, but you have all the foreign guys who will do the $15 turnaround on a vector file in 24 hours.
Well, I don't know those foreign guys, but I know Mark Coudray as a separator. He's been separating things for his NetSeps thing is forever. And how long have you been doing SEP, Scott?
A little bit.
A little while?
Bit, yeah.
So,
I think it's just another service that we all provide. I mean, I think that there's a need, and I think we all help the printers do better quality work because a lot of my customers have never done simulator process. This will be their first high-end job when they send me a file, and usually they come back and go, wow, the customer loved it, and I got more stuff like this now. And I think that between Mark and myself and Scott at MySaps, all of us are helping screeners out to do better work.
Well, when we were prepping for this, I sat in your office next to you while you took 2 service calls, and I was thoroughly impressed.
I do Team Viewer, and I go online with these guys and show them how to do it and do this, and this, and they go, wow, I didn't know how to do that. Now, the guy today, remember what I said to the guy? Now, listen.
Well, yes, but I
do me a favor, and would you crack the manual? I could tell by the question he was asking. He downloaded TSEPs. He never cracked the manual. Didn't have a clue. And his last comment to me before he hung up was, I'm going to crack open that manual and watch the videos. I didn't know it would do this much stuff.
What's the internet slogan for that?
Yeah, RTFM. Then you figure it out. Read the effing manual. So.
Okay. So, Mark was talking about disruptive technologies like, that would be Mark Coudray, was talking about disruptive technologies like direct-to-screen. And there are so many people, and I literally watched him twice at this trade show, that somebody comes up, yes, but I can't do direct-to-garment. It doesn't replace screen printing. But I don't think that's what it is supposed to do. It is as different from screen printing as maybe embroidery is. But Mark was discussing computer to screen, the net effect of how it reduces time that you're doing a screen every, it takes 38 minutes to process a screen in your shop versus 6 minutes to process a screen in your shop. And they're more consistent, and you have less utilities and, yes, less supplies that you have to use. And he just had a super succinct way to just describe that. No, it's a game change. You don't have to use a laser printer. You don't have to use an inkjet printer. You can still use a manual Selectric typewriter. You can't do everything with everything.
I think a year ago I would have had very few customers tell me that they're going to go to direct to screen when they got my SEPs. But now, because they may want me to give them TIFF files, depends on their RIP, how I send them the SEPs. And now, I'll bet at least once a week, there'll be the notes on the order. We're going to go direct to screen, and it's definitely a game changer. I mean, I see it, although it's still pricey. So I think the small guy is still the manual guy that working out of his house is probably, 40 grand or whatever they're going for is a little too much for them. But I think it's definitely a game changer. By the way, was Mark working a booth or just working the aisles?
No, just working the aisles.
Just like we all are, just hanging out.
One of the things that Mark was actually not wild about that, but he spent the afternoon with Frank Vacanti.
Really?
And he said he went to go over and have lunch with Frank Vacanti at one of the restaurants across the street. And he said he went in before noon. He got his PayPal notice and he said that he finished and paid at 2:15, but they're kind of nudging him at 4:30. Could you move on, sir? And he went, no. Yeah. So he spent 4 hours with Frank Vacanti. In fact, Frank came up to him, said, Mark, and he said, you may not remember me. How can you not know Frank Vacanti?
Don't know Frank Vacanti.
Frank Vacanti is the rock and roll printer who really was the heartbeat of Winterland, the rock and roll printers of the go-go 70s and 80s.
Winterland was. I mean, you and I grew up on that, but I'm thinking now, how long has Winterland been gone?
In the olden days of the 80s.
But those were the guys. I mean,
how many Born to Run? I don't remember, but you can imagine millions of Born to Run Springsteen T-shirts, and of course Bill Graham, Winterland. They had the rock and roll connections. They're a huge superstar. Huge, and he's still
Winterland before New Buffalo. I mean, I'm thinking about the guys that did black shirts the best. I mean, obviously New Buffalo were the guys, but I'm wondering I'm trying to think back in my foggy memory here. Where Winterland fit in. Maybe it was the same time frame with New Buffalo and Winterland doing.
The cool thing about Winterland is they're up on like the second or third floor. They had a lot of ovals, yet they were doing really sophisticated work. And guys like Bill Wayner, who was not a Winterland guy, but these guys could really pull it out. And they were also the biggest companies. Now we've got gigantic companies in Honduras and all over the world that have 20, 30 automatics. That was unheard of in the late 70s and early 80s and 90s. He's a superstar of the growing go-go years. So
but you're right.
I didn't see him. I would have loved to see him.
Back then it wasn't offshore. You're right. It wasn't offshore. You didn't have all the printing being done in Honduras and stuff.
San Francisco, looking out on the Embarcadero from the windows.
Yeah. Anyways, so you had a nice dinner, though, I'm guessing.
Had a nice dinner. Now, the highlight of this dinner was meeting John Sheridan of Jack Prints. Now, I've seen John Sheridan's name a lot, and I had read about John Sheridan, or I knew about John Sheridan when he worked for Rick Roth up at Mirror Image in Massachusetts, and I know 2 other John Sheridans in my database, but I've been reading John Sheridan stuff on the Shirt board, and he wrote a story about training or hiring people with a Lego kit, and I like that. And then I finally realized when I actually met him in person at this dinner at the King's, and I said, oh, I've had you all wrong. I know which John Sheridan you are. And Pierre Jamnichi got him to repeat his story, which he wrote about. If you go to the T-shirt, the shirt board forum, and you search for, maybe you should use Google to search it. I will go look it up and put it in the show notes. But John tells a great story about hiring people. And so what he does is he learned this, of course, from his young, under 5-year-old son, and how his young son uses the instructions on a Lego kit. And so what he did is he brought in a Lego kit to hire employees. And he said, first you got one kind of employee, a candidate, that they'll take out the Lego kit, spill out the things, they'll push the instructions over to the side, and then they'll start to build it. Then you got another person that will take out the Lego box, dump it out, and they'll spread the pieces all over and put all the grays, the blues, the greens, the purples. He's using a Star Wars kind of a Lego kit. And then they'll go and they'll try and put it together, and they'll look at the box cover or whatever. But the kind of employee he's looking for is someone who reads the instructions and follows the instructions. because the
Yeah, I would have thought
instructions are
different. Well, that's good.
the instructions are modular. Here's how it's done, and what we need in factory work is soldiers, not creative, innovative figures that want to do it on their own way. We need people who will follow the instructions on the work
I'm going to have to
order.
search that. There must be a video.
Well,
of
I
that.
will dig out the imprint instructions.
You know, Michael Fresener always thought that I should have him play chess with any potential employee, because Michael thought that playing chess would tell him about their intuition, their scheming, and I thought it was a great idea. We never did it, but Michael always said, "You let me play chess with him before you hire him, Dad."
Well, I really enjoyed meeting John, and
Where's he out of now? I want to say Cleveland, but it's not.
Now he runs the Southern California, the San Diego Oceanside branch of Jack Prince, that is the second branch of Jack Prince from Cleveland.
So Jack Prince was from Cleveland. That's what I was thinking.
Right.
Oh, okay.
They're starting this new outfit
Right.
out on the West Coast, and that's their second venture, and they're just doing a bang-up job.
Yeah.
Although they're not really using Newmans or things like that, so I can't love them completely, I guess.
As long as they're doing a bang-up job, though, shipping product, good quality.
So
Right.
that makes me think of Rick Roth.
Right. Who was not there?
Rick Roth was not that. Rick Roth got into a football accident, or he fell on and hurt his head when he was playing football or something, and didn't really affect him too much, but it turned out that he had some sort of a clot on the brain. I'm not the expert at whatever it was, but he had to have some brain surgery and wasn't able to fly. He won't be able to fly for 2 to 3 months or something like that, so he wasn't able to be at the show, but he was writing and texting. I never knew that he wasn't, that he was under the gun, so we all wish him well, and I'm sure he's going to recover and just be perfect.
But he had the ink kitchen there, his
Yes,
booth.
his ink kitchen was there. He sent out the Pamela, his secret weapon. He sent her out, and I met lovely Ashley, the photographer, who I'd seen her picture in the blog, on the ink kitchen blog, and so young women.
But who was working the booth? He was going to have experts.
He had Pam. He had Ashley, the lovely Ashley, the photographer, and Casey Ruby, the super art guy. That I knew his name, but I had all sorts of articles that Casey had written in the past, and I got to spend some time with them, and I answered questions while I was hanging around, so I probably answered questions for 2 or 3 hours.
Do you think they give him the booth? Because what's the point of the booth? I mean, other than it's okay, but who's paying for the concrete?
I think Rick is the master of the trading force subsidy.
So.
He's entirely subsidized by, I think, 15...
He has sponsors.
Yeah, 15 different sponsors that he promotes heartily, and in fact, his impression show Long Beach, he put out 4 sort of news releases as to what to go see, and of course it's all of the vendors that sponsor him.
Yeah.
But you see, they don't only let people sponsor them the products that they actually use. They're endorsed by the in-kitchen guys.
And I think Rick's a well-known guy. You'd look at his sponsors and go, well, if he uses these guys, whether it be MHM or wherever.
Now, Tom Davenport, that runs motion graphics up in Sacramento, he's a super guy. I only met him last year at SGIA, and I remember seeing him as an SGI board member. He's a powerhouse in Northern California, and just a real together guy. He spent a lot of time at the Ink Kitchen. Also, he's the other main partner in the Ink Kitchen.
Right. People should check it out. They have a nice blog with interesting little articles and stuff, so they should check it out. You commented to me that you saw a new company, RG Group.
Yes, RG. So I'm walking up, and of course the people that I see there, I get, what, R. Greaves, is this the new Richard Greaves?
Richard Greaves Group. I'm sorry, I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah.
So I see my initials around, and that's, so, no, the Rutland company was purchased by, I've forgotten their name again, but a conglomerate, some sort of a funding company.
Rutland, Union, QCM, Print Top.
Right, but it's something like Riverview. I apologize to my corporate masters, but there's a venture capital people that have invested, and that's something we followed the last year or so. I mentioned in one of the other netcasts that we've done, but they're under a gigantic umbrella. It is Union, Rutland, QCM, and of course Print Top, which they bought just 2 years ago.
Now, were they one big booth?
One big booth, and it had like 4 sides, but I love Rutland, but it's a Rutland group. So Union's kind of off on the side, on the back. I saw, of course, my good friend Mike Ukenna, and we had a nice get together, and he had some new stuff that he showed me, and the Rutland people are on the other side. So it's congratulations
Seems like a
to them.
branding. In their mind, they probably think it's better branding, RG Group. But I think for us old guys,
Well, it's an
we
umbrella.
know Union, we know Rutland. We want to see those names.
It's not going to separate things. It's a holding company that owns them. So, they've been sold like every 5 to 7 years. They've been transferred to other financial companies, whether they make money or not. So, Lancer was right around the corner from them. Our old friends Jeff Proctor and Joe Catazone was there.
Joey DeWing.
Joe Cat, I hadn't seen since I mentioned him in the SGIA thing. Joe comes to me, just shoots across the booth. It's Richard. Thanks for mentioning me on the netcast that you did with Scott.
We need to list the names we can
Well,
mention.
he got a link from one of his customers, and he didn't really tell him what it was. And unfortunately, Joe had to listen to the entire netcast, and we come in at like 58 minutes into the talk where we mentioned that he is now, and I got the official word from him because I hadn't talked to him much at all, but officially now he is a partner in the Viking Supply. He created a partnership with the people that own Viking Supply.
And they're a full line supplier.
They are really only. I don't mean to diminish them, but they were a QCM vendor when QCM was still way up in Washington State before Rutland bought them. And so Joe Catazone is familiar with them. They're in the neighborhood
But
where
they
he
don't
is.
sell emulsion, then, or do you know?
No, they didn't. But then when they partnered up with Joe,
okay.
they literally gave him, or I don't know the details of the thing, but he's a partner, a full-on partner. That he said, well, I'm going to run it your way. We don't want to run a supply business. But they only had one real vendor, QCM Inc. Now Joe, in just 2 or 3 months, he's got 19 different supply lines. So he's traveling every day.
Joe's a good guy, and he was. What do you think he was? National sales manager for Union.
22 years.
Long time. Yeah, Joe's a good guy, and was with him a long time, and I think the changes at Rutland between Rutland and Union kind of got to him a little bit, and maybe he decided it was time.
Well, I have never seen him happier.
That's what you said. Yeah.
He's happy. He's just, maybe it's the weight off of his mind. He's really happily traveling, and his parent company now, or the company that he's invested in, he said he's making more money and happier. What else can I say?
Yeah.
So those of you that are on Long Island or anywhere on the East Coast,
Long Island.
Long Island.
You have to say it right. Yeah.
So I used to live in Long Island. Brooklyn is part of Long Island. I didn't
don't think I didn't
realize
I
that.
Know
So
whole geography back there. So anyway.
So he was hanging out in the Lancer booth. He's going to be distributing Lancer
so he distributes
products.
Lancer.
Yeah.
That's why he was there.
So I saw Jeff Proctor there, and I needled him about his Falcons because I don't see him really posting anything about Screen Printing Inc. I only see him and his daughter posting about the Falcons.
I don't follow him, so I'll have to check that out.
Well, he didn't go to SGHI because he had tickets to go to the English demonstration game that they had in Wembley.
Yeah.
So he and his daughter went to football fans
you went
before
and hung out with,
football before Lancer. I don't know.
You went and hung out with the boys. We call the boys Ben and David Landesman from Lawson. So they were. I'm sure they were there.
Yeah, Ben and David were there. The only real new product that I saw in the booth, they're showing the usual stuff, was that they had what's called a Mini Max, and they have a manual machine called the HD Max, a very nice manual press. I like it a lot. But what they did is they added some automatic heads. It's a very simplistic machine, but if you want to print simple 1 and 2 color machines, 2 color prints, it's absolutely something that you should think about. So people want to do sleeves only. They want to do pockets only. There are several people I know at the show who are looking for small pocket presses only.
Was it like the little rapid? I mean, everybody has one now. A little press, small footprint.
Just imagine that you've got a manual speed table, and instead of manual heads, you load and you spin the table,
right?
And you press the button and the heads go.
Yeah.
And you spin it when it locks into place. You press the button and
I'll have to check it out.
So it's an assisted manual press, but perfect for the new tags or sleeves or pockets is what my friend was actually looking for, machine to do that. Now, it's I actually don't know how much it costs, but it's not as expensive as the Freedom Express from Workhorse, but the Freedom Express at $25,000. People do not need the starting 12 heads that you get from M&R or not M&R, but MHM, for instance.
Yeah.
You need a starter piece of equipment. I've always loved starter automatics because I don't want people to print on a manual if they don't have to. I would like to see them get an automatic as quickly as possible. Load one shirt, print 6 colors. Load one shirt, print 6 colors. That's where the money is, not loading and flashing. Especially if you want to print black shirts.
Yeah. I talked to David a few weeks ago and before the show, and I think they're doing quite well with Epson, though, too. The Epson printer.
Yeah.
They're selling a bunch of those things, and I think they seem pretty well committed to that whole thing.
Very stable. Somebody mentioned, I think it was Mark Coudray, that there were maybe, and so I can't quote him perfectly now, but there were like 28 or 30 companies that were selling screen printing equipment, but there were 38 companies that were
DTG?
DTG
No way.
equipment.
Wow. Interesting. Well, you're right. There's a niche for it. I think that the guy that buys the thing is going to replace screen printing. You have to have a right niche for it. And it's like, you're right. It's different. Embroidery is different than screening. You've got DTG different customer, different market. And I think it's got respectability now. It's been out long enough. Mike and I, my son, were just talking last week. We showed our first machine 10 years ago, 2004, Minneapolis, SGIA. That was, so 10
What was
years
it, the
have
fast
gone.
screen?
That was the T-Jet.
Oh, okay, all
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
all
yeah.
right.
And it was the first time Cornette had their machine. Brother didn't show there because they were still beta testing. So it was just Cornette and the T-Jet 10 years ago. 10 years, I would have thought we'd been farther along, higher production rates and things. And even now, we talked about, you look at the Aeon or even the Cornette Avalanche, and they're bragging of numbers of hundreds per hour. But you watch them print, I don't think they're getting those numbers. Hey, we moved our party back to the beautiful T-Biz offices overlooking the Salt River with the Superstitions behind us in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona. And, we ended up talking about you'd mentioned the Aeon, which is that big, kind of a fire truck looking. I think that's the color of fire trucks in Scottsdale. It's that weird lemon line. It is, really. That is the lemon lime. But you mentioned that the Aeon DTG printer was actually printing.
It was actually printing. I've seen that unit when All American, Peter Choi's company, had it at all kinds of shows, and it's never run. I've never seen it actually
beyond
running.
me. There'd be the machine there. I think I told one time that I think I saw it. I saw it once, and they were giving away samples. I don't think that machine printed them. I think they printed them on one of the Neil Flexes over in the other corner of the booth. But what surprised me was that you said NASDAR had the machine. Which you think of NASDAR as being DTG? I mean, I know they carry digital stuff, but I never think of NASDAR as being a DTG source.
Think of that, the biggest distributor of equipment in the United States.
You think they are? I mean, I know they're.
Well, who's bigger than them? Midwest Sign and Screen Supply, maybe, but NASDAR's a bigger power than Midwest, with all due respect to my pals at Midwest.
Well, I think NASDAR will do well with that. And I wonder if they have any DTG ink. They're real big on making their own ink and stuff. Maybe they've got some, who knows what they've got.
I saw it in the booth. That was a revelation. It doesn't look like it's printing so fast, though. Now it's got multiple heads, so when you print what you've seen on the screen while we're talking, you can see that it prints. It's a gigantic machine. It looks pretty much like the Cornettes.
But they brag of numbers of hundreds an hour. The Cornette and the
400, like another 20, 50.
But you're right. You watch them at the shows printing, and you go, "Are you kidding me?" Now maybe that's just their show speed, and they're doing big prints as opposed to those numbers are probably done for, like we used to do with the T-Jet, a little smaller print, so you can get a little higher production number. But still, I think the average screen print guy is going to go, not for me.
Well, it is not for the average screen print guy. You're talking about $400,000 plus. What's the shipping charge on something like that?
Comes from
UPS,
Austria, or whatever. And they have to install it anyway. But I think I always thought it was a game changer until I would, like you, saw it at shows and it wasn't printing. But when they first brought it out, I thought it was going to be a game changer.
Now, so I show my poor reporting skills here. If I'd have gone and spoken to a couple of people at NASDAR and found out anybody that's really interested in that sort of a machine, NASDAR knows you already. NASDAR will probably fly you anywhere you want to go to look at this 400,000 plus massive machine that will use more ink than the.
Well, I'm glad to see they had it out. So I'm assuming that your buddies from your old job, Ulano, were at the show.
Yes, they had actually a pretty large booth compared to the booths they've had at the last.
Yeah, their own booth,
shows.
not with distributors. Maybe they were with distributors, but they had their own.
Well, they had kind of a wraparound thing. Kiwo was at one end with an aisle end. And
because
then
Ulano owns Kiwo.
Yes,
since
since
I guess
1999.
people know that, but I mean, it's been a long time. But I think maybe still that branding has been pretty well kept separate.
The Kiwo Holdings Group, with complicated money kind of stuff, but Kiwo owns Ulano. They bought them in 1999.
Oh, and I think I just said Yolano and Kiwo. I was thinking it was the other way around.
Oh, no.
But I knew it wasn't that way around.
It's Mr. Eisenweiss is in charge, but it's all it's corporate stuff. It's not like David is the only person, except of course he is. But
Yeah.
he's the man in charge.
So new goop.
Well, what's interesting is that Kiwo has done a deal with Grunig, and so there was a Grunig reclaiming system for quite a long length. Then it was a long length, and then there was another end cap where Yolano was. So they've clearly commingled all the reps, because the reps are wearing Kiwo on one sleeve and Yolano on another. And the great George LePage retired at Christmas time. He went to his last party at Yolano, and so George has retired. And they tell me he was 60 plus, but I never got that kind of a vibe from George. He was, I didn't think he was that much older than I was. So he will be missed.
Has new goop.
Yes, they have a new goop.
But if they bring out new goop, does Kiwo get it too? I mean, it seems odd, like the Rutland thing, Yolano has their new stuff, and then Kiwo.
I'm sure you might think that, but I couldn't possibly comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, there are industrial secrets that
Yeah.
sometimes get shared between companies.
Yeah. So what's Yolano's new stuff?
Mo and Yulia sometimes fly to Texas.
Yeah,
Yes.
right, yeah. So what's the new
All right,
Yolano
so
stuff?
the bucket we talked about at Nashville, was it? Yes, Nashville.
Yeah,
No, it was Atlantic City.
No.
I don't know. One of the other ISS shows, they showed the original prototype of a new bucket, which you're looking at the screen right now. There's a picture of it right on the screen now. It's got a handle that's much more reinforced. It's a little squatter now, and it comes in a completely different shaped box, so it's low and flatter. So that's what I heard from the guys. That
Why did
all new
somebody
boxes.
do that soon? Last time I did a class on pouring emulsion out of a quart, chromoline, container and pouring it and it's dripping. I'm thinking about the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking, wouldn't you have thought somebody would have made a pour thing 20 years ago?
Well, people like Dutch Boy did. And they wrote a very big check to get a custom bucket molded. Those paint buckets that you see at the office supplies, at the Home Depot style stores, those are custom buckets made only for them. And this bucket is a custom bucket that's made for Yolano in beautiful Yolano red. It's got an insert that pops out so you can clean the lip that goes on the inside, and it's got a sealable cap at the top.
Really? Wow.
And so once your first gallon is there, then you got something. You could make tea in it. You could put ink in it, or you could put any other emulsion you want. Of course, I can't imagine anybody else buying Yolano. Any other emulsion except Yolano.
Yeah, of course.
Or Kiwo.
Yeah, of course. Now they have a new. Is it a waterproof? The new one?
Yes, there's a new emulsion called Double Duty, and it is an improved version, says me, of QT Discharge. So it's got much better reclaimability, much better water resistance, and much better, all-round work. It's a great double duty.
And it's shipping now.
It is shipping now.
Yeah. And you haven't tried it though.
I haven't tried it. It is absolutely. This was introduced at this show.
Right. Okay.
So I will get some and compare it to my old QT Discharge.
And then in 3 months, Kiwo will have something. What'll be double duty in German?
I can't tell.
A German name.
You'll have to speak to your Yolano Kiwo distributor.
Yes.
To find that out.
All right. So what else did you see? It was good.
The interesting thing about the Two Regular Guys broadcast. They do a netcast at these shows, and it was actually in the Impressions booth. And as I mentioned before, the Impressions booth and the awards were right in the lobby. And so I can't remember if yesterday I said, when people are coming in and out, they're walking right through this booth. And of course, while Aaron and Terry Combs were doing their podcast, literally people are streaming through, and there's drinks being given away. Everybody had to show their ID, so there were people with gray hair.
They were free? You said they were free, I thought.
Free wine or a small glass of beer,
Is that new? I don't recall them having that kind of a free stuff in the lobby.
There it was. People lined up all the way back to behind the escalators. So.
And you were on the podcast.
I was on the podcast. Mark Coudray spoke. Rick Davis spoke. There are a couple other ladies, I think they're embroidery or something. If you go to Two Regular Guys, they have a regular Friday podcast that Terry Combs and Aaron Montgomery do every week. So it's definitely good too. They also, a nice thing, they gave out awards for the Reggies.
The Reggie, yeah.
So
for the best trade show and best supplier, best tech support.
They had a podcast maybe 2 months ago, and they wanted people to nominate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called in, and I nominated. It was right after SGIA, and I nominated the brown firefly, which of course is my big pick for the most important thing that's happened in such a long time. And one of the Harpold sons, I apologize, I don't know which one it was, but he collected his award and duly.
You did get it. I saw the list.
There were other ones. There were some other people that got them, and.
You should call it the wedgie.
Well, I don't know. I can't speak to the relationship there. I did kid them a while ago that the Reggie is what Riley Hopkins called his registration scheme.
You're right. Yeah.
But I don't think anybody will confuse the Reggie Award.
No, I guess Riley wasn't there because he sold out to Ryan a long time ago. But I think he's off racing cars now. You had commented that the show, we know the shows used to be, they were always recorded, the seminars.
Oh, yeah.
We had our buddy Rick and I think Tanya.
Audio print, Rick and Tanya, yeah.
Perky, because she was always so, in the morning, when you go to a show, you have to get perky. And I know you've done that. When you go there and go, I got to get my perky face on.
I'm always perky.
But they used to give us the cassettes.
Yes.
And so now it's a whole different deal, though.
Well, I guess it's a whole different deal. This is the first impressions seminar that I've done since like 2003. When they changed their system, and I, wasn't invited back. Now we don't get our expenses like we used to. So it's a different world. Yeah. It's also a very digital world. But when I went over to the stand where it is and said, "Oh, how do I get my free copy?" They said, who are you? Yeah, something like that. And so I showed them how important I was.
Yeah.
But I have to look into that. But for people that didn't go, I still think it's a fantastic bargain. I do not know how much people had to pay for one of the themes. I think they call it something else, though. But screen printing is what I'm interested in, but they also had digital decorating or embroidery. And when you get one of the CDs or DVD, you get the entire seminar. And so you would get, let's say, 2 or 3 Dane Clements, a couple of Charlie Taubliebs, Alan Howe from Tech Support. He was doing something on polyester. He was before me, and Pierre and I, we went for 2 hours, and we never would have made that in the old cassette days because those cassettes stopped at 90 minutes. So
cut you off
now
middle,
it's digital.
Yeah. But it's 145 or
it's 149 after the conference. So
for the track, like a 149 for the screen print. I think it's a hell of a deal.
Yeah.
If you can go to the show and you're going to probably get, what are you going to get? A dozen hours or maybe more of seminars.
Now I haven't seen them yet. But it's got to be an improvement over the cassettes because there all you got was the audio. But when I look behind the curtain where they're recording, there was what we had up on the screen. So if they have a feed of the PowerPoints that we put up on the projector, then you're going to be able to see the slides and hear us. You just won't see us.
Yeah, and if you didn't go to the show, you can order it. I mean, we're putting up the screen of the
right.
address and stuff.
I'd love to be able to say that just listening to Pierre and I for 2 hours was worth $150. And Charlie's always worthwhile. Mm-hmm. So you're getting an awful lot of information if you get the entire
$10 what was yours, 15 tips?
15. Well, it's 15.
Well, it's only $10 a deal.
Yeah, I used to do one like that.
That's cheap.
Okay. Pierre, the seminar, as I said before, it was really from Pierre's viewpoint that as a business owner, and I would talk about the science, and then he would follow up and explain how you could actually use that as a business owner.
Yeah. Now you had some run-ins with personal friends.
Now we have my personal friends. Actually, the most interesting thing that I'll tell you about for next year is that my friend Ray Blackie from St. Louis, he went to he and his entire crew from his shop. He works at Haneke's in St. Louis. They all went to the Queen Mary champagne brunch. Now, when I lived in St. Louis, I'd go regularly, at least once a month, to the $40 Ritz-Carlton brunch because it was just a real treat, and I lived alone, and it was just something I'd while away the morning in. Ray said that it was better than the Ritz-Carlton. Champagne, anything that you might want to eat, and so it's fun to go to the Queen Mary anyway and just walk around the strip.
But for $50?
For 50, yeah, it's a $50 brunch.
Yeah, not like a Vegas.
Well, no. It's
brunch.
The best brunch. He said is the best brunch he'd ever been to. So I believe him.
Well, I think those guys would have probably been real pleased because if you've never been in the Queen Mary too,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
you realize then how small those rooms were and the aisles. I mean, my kids when they were going to shows used to run up and down the Queen Mary and go over there and play around.
I like the Queen Mary. I've stayed there a couple of times. You can get a small, fairly inexpensive room, and then you just take the bus that drops you off across the street next to the California Kitchen,
Right,
the pizza
yeah,
place.
yeah.
So you have to walk 3 blocks, but
Yeah.
it beats renting a car.
Who else did you see?
So I hadn't seen John Lynch from Krakow, Poland for maybe 20, 25 years, and John was at the show. I helped John and his wife at the time and Kaylin start Linka in Krakow, Poland. There are people that went to the Wharton School of Business in Pennsylvania, and they were on an exchange program. They stayed in Poland to create a very innovative business system when Poland sort of opened up to free trade and that sort of thing. So they started very small. They didn't know one end of a squeegee from another when we started, but now they're literally a conglomerate. They're the Haynes distributor for many places in Europe. And
did they do the vodka shirt? I'm thinking years
Yes.
ago it was an award-winning shirt at SGIA.
it was the droplets of water.
Oh, it was
on the
magnificent.
cover. They have a couple of covers of Printwear magazine
Right.
from the mid or late 90s. I'm taking personal credit because I told them that what they really needed to do was that they really needed to go and work at Rick Roth's shop and work with Mark Payton, friends of mine that were in their neighborhood in Rhode Island, Massachusetts. And when they met up with Rick Roth, Rick went over several times, and I think Rick Roth, he added fuel to the fire that I started. I seeded them, I got them going in their very first factory, but it was Rick Roth that taught them to print, and they've just been
Well,
super
they did some really great
successful.
stuff. Yeah, that was a
Yeah,
good story.
it's fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
I also saw Alex Hogg from Twin City Tees in St. Paul. I met him at the Nashville show, and he's become a very good show-style friend. We talk on the phone, and he brought his entire crew. He made the investment of bringing them all to the Imprinted Sportswear
four.
show. Well, it's all 4, but it's still expensive. But he made a real investment there. And
He hasn't sold out to like Alpha Broder, whoever they bought everybody.
Is this a
haven't they?
theme with you? The
No,
selling out?
No, but the selling out probably the wrong term. But those guys have been gobbling up some of these T-shirt wholesalers.
Well, he's not a T-shirt wholesaler. He's
I
a
thought he
printer.
was. Oh, I thought he was.
No.
Oh,
He's a
oh,
printer.
okay.
He's
I
a
thought
printer.
he was.
I'm not interested in shirt wholesalers.
I know.
They're not my friends.
Big conglomerates.
What we are doing is that Alex and I have been trying to do this for quite a while, to do a class every week or every day or whatever, 10 or 20-minute classes, which I can do with Skype. I used to do that in the olden days at Ulano. I used to teach a class for some Pennsylvania high school, which I've forgotten the name of. Every Friday at 10:45 for 45 minutes, I would do a class. And
That's a great concept, though. By the way, with Skype, it's so easy now.
well, it's something for me in my infirmity or in my ability. I can certainly teach a class. And what I told actually several people, in fact, I've been pitching this to everybody, but there were several people who came to the seminar that I tried to pitch that to. And what I want people to do is I want them to create case studies. Everybody knows what went wrong yesterday, and they don't know how to solve it. And they can't just let that slide because that's cancer. It'll happen again and again and again. So I will have an answer or an article or some reading. And if you talk to me once a week for 52 weeks and I give you 52 articles to read, you'll be the smartest screen printers in the county or the state.
We talked the other day about the case studies they used to have at SGIA, where the Screen Printing Magazine had articles, and they would at SGIA go to a seminar and be somebody stand up and say, "Here's the print. Here's exactly how I did it." And I learned so much. This was in the days I didn't know anybody, and I just went to SGIA and didn't know a soul. I always felt a little like an outcast, and then I met everybody. But I thought it was a great concept that they had to bring back, frankly.
At TechSims, we used to do that for the
TechSims
SGII
used to do it, yeah.
and Printwear Magazine. We did that at several shows that we gave the same design to 6 or 7 different printers and explained how they did it. And it's a good concept.
Yeah.
Now, on a personal level, I met a man who worked for an old consulting client of mine from the early 90s, Carol Fairchild from Pensacola, Florida, Philip Hicks. And I'd been telling some people just this week about the 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey and William Unken, who wrote Managing...
I've never heard of that until you mentioned that, by the way.
Never mentioned that?
No, the book.
The 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey?
Until you mentioned it the other day, I'd never heard of it.
Well, I was a big believer in the 1 Minute Manager books They're very small. They have very basic principles. And for beginning managers, which I was when I was first starting out in learning, my mother used to make fun of them. They were pablum, but believe me, I still think they have tremendous value. And with Jeffrey Gitomer, who I've mentioned in the past, my old partner in the old T-shirt company, Jeffrey Gitomer actually wrote a book with Ken Blanchard, and I got to sit in a hotel room for 2 days with Jeffrey and Ken Blanchard, making the notes on the books and that. So I contributed in my own way, and he's just an amazing, amazing guy. But to push that aside, that I didn't want to buy the 1 Minute Manager meets the monkey. The monkey. There's a picture of a monkey on the cover, and so I'm not just this Curious George kind of a problem. But when I went to do the consulting job with them, there in the bedroom that I stayed at was a copy of the book. So I read it, and what a fool I was. And I tracked it back to the Harvard Business Review article that was in 1991, and the Harvard Business Review just online in the last month reprinted it again with a follow-up by Stephen Covey. So I'll put that in the show notes, the link to the Harvard Business Review. But if you're interested in this at all, go to Amazon and buy a used copy of the Simon & Schuster 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey audio tapes. I personally guarantee it will be the funniest seminar you have ever listened to, bar none.
Now, will they learn from that, or will it just be funny? Is there a
it
purpose?
It changed my life. 30 years ago, it changed my life. No question about it. And the credit for that comes from Carol Fairchild having it. Now, a man walks up to me at the T-shirt board dinner and says, "You won't remember me." And I went, "Yep, I don't remember you." He says, "I'm Philip Hicks. I was the screen maker and printer with Carol Fairchild." Now, Carol Fairchild. Mm-hmm. I couldn't even remember her name because I'd been, I'm having a resurgence there. So it was fun to have an old home week, and I love telling the story of the 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey. No matter it's William Onken, the greatest seminar ever.
Well, the title just grabs you anyway. You got to read it.
I know, but I push it back. I didn't like the monkey part.
Yeah.
Friends from Portland, Steve Lutz. I don't know if I actually did any consulting for Steve or not, but I know I went to his shop, and he took me to the Opus One restaurant in Portland, which I remember that's a top 5 dinner. So that's just people you meet from 20, 30 years ago. But Randy Scolati used to work for Washington Color and Chemical. He's got his own supply company up there in Portland, RC Screen Supply. And he was there with his entire family. It's the wife and the sons. I met lots of sons. Did I mention yesterday the Don Newman's nephew? I was giving him the needle like I gave to Sam Balfour. So also from Portland is my old friend Randy Scolati, who I worked with when he was at Washington Color and Chemical. And I trained.
They sold to. They're no longer around. Washington Color. Didn't they sell to?
I think they merged with Midwest Sign and Screen Supply.
Midwest Sign. Yeah, right. Sorry.
Was Randy at Calcom?
Oh, that's a name from the past. I don't know. Either way.
Well, it's live, folks.
Either way, we'll figure it out.
We know what each other looks like. I trained him as a Stretch Devices guy. He's a terrific fellow, and so I just glad to. Now he says that he wants to do seminars, so I'm ready to go. So he pitched me coming to the Seattle, Portland area to do seminars. So
you should do that. I think we covered it all.
Okay.
You had a great show. Had a good time.
The Long Beach Imprinted Sportswear Show is the show to go to.
I know, and I'm sorry I wasn't there. I should have been there. But, we're going to do another show report. Next show is Atlantic City.
Atlantic City. I'll be there. Pierre will be there. We'll be doing that very same seminar. And it's not as big as ISS Long Beach, but
well,
it's
you'll
still
have it more
a good
refined
show.
now, so maybe you'll get to the 15 points within the 90 minutes.
I hope so.
That's good.
We'll see.
All right. Scott Fresener and Richard Greaves reporting from the beautiful offices of T-Biz Network in Scottsdale, Arizona, having a good time. Thanks for watching. We enjoyed it. Bye-bye.